They trusted a father, completely normal, and paid for it. For 24 years, she didn't see the sky. The house looked ordinary. 2 stories, quiet street, neighbors who waved. No one knew there was a room beneath it. In the town of Amstetten, Austria, Josef Fritzl was known as strict, private, but not dangerous. He had a wife, children, a routine, and a locked basement door no one questioned. The room wasn't part of the original house. It had been reinforced, concrete walls, steel doors, hidden behind shelving. It required multiple keys, and it wasn't meant to be found. In 1984, his daughter disappeared. Letters began arriving weeks later, claiming she had run away. Authorities believed it. The family believed it. The town moved on, but she hadn't left. She was underground. Amstetten is not the kind of place people associate with notoriety. It is a quiet town in Lower Austria, structured by routine. Small businesses open on time. Neighbors greet each other in passing. Houses sit in orderly rows along calm residential streets. Nothing about it suggests secrecy. In the 1980s, Josef Fritzl lived there with his wife Rosemary and their children. To outsiders, he appeared disciplined and private. He had worked as an electrical engineer. He maintained his property. He followed routines. Neighbors later described him as strict, sometimes distant, but not outwardly alarming. The Fritzl house itself looked ordinary, a 2-story structure with a basement, like many others in the area. Curtains drawn at night, a tidy exterior, seasonal decorations. It blended seamlessly into the neighborhood. There were no visible signs of disturbance, no frequent police visits, no public altercations, no sudden disappearances that appeared suspicious beyond what the family explained. What makes this case unsettling is precisely that absence of visible chaos. Behind the structure of normal family life, something had already been set in motion years before the public would ever understand it. Renovations had taken place. Permits had been requested for basement modifications. On paper, those changes appeared minor: additional storage space, reinforced areas. Nothing about the paperwork suggested what the space would become. For decades, people walked past that house unaware that beneath it, concealed behind reinforced doors and hidden compartments, a separate reality existed, one that would remain undiscovered until 2008. Amstetten functioned as usual, and beneath one of its quiet homes, isolation had already begun. Long before 1984, Josef Fritzl had already established control inside his household. Documented records show he had a prior criminal conviction in 1967 for sexual assault. He served a prison sentence of approximately 18 months. After his release, he returned to family life. Over time, that conviction faded from public awareness. In the neighborhood, it was not widely discussed. Inside the home, however, his authority was rarely questioned. Former acquaintances later described him as domineering. He enforced strict rules. Doors were locked. Movements were monitored. His temper was unpredictable. According to court findings, he exercised psychological control over his wife and children for years before Elisabeth's disappearance. Elisabeth Fritzl was born in 1966. As she grew older, tension between father and daughter reportedly increased. She was described as independent, which clashed with his rigid expectations. By her teenage years, conflicts inside the home had escalated. In August 1984, when Elisabeth was 18 years old, she vanished. Josef told authorities she had run away to join a religious cult. Weeks later, handwritten letters arrived at the family home. They claimed Elisabeth had left voluntarily and did not wish to be found. Those letters would later be proven to have been written under coercion. At the time, police accepted the explanation. The letters reduced suspicion. The case did not trigger sustained investigation. From the outside, it appeared to be a troubled young woman choosing to leave. What was not known then, and later established in court, was that Elisabeth had never left the property. She had been lured into the basement by her father under the pretense of helping him carry a door. Once inside, the door closed, and it did not reopen. The basement did not begin as a prison. The original house in Amstetten included a standard cellar space. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, Josef Fritzl began expanding it. According to court findings, he told authorities he needed additional storage and workspace. He obtained permits for certain structural modifications. What he did not disclose was the full extent of what he was building. Behind what appeared to be ordinary basement walls, he constructed concealed chambers. The hidden section was accessible only through a narrow passage sealed behind a heavy concrete door reinforced with steel. The entrance was later described as weighing hundreds of pounds. It required electronic codes and multiple locking mechanisms. Soundproofing materials were installed. Ventilation systems were added. Electrical wiring was routed into the concealed rooms. The space eventually included several small compartments, sleeping areas, a tiny bathroom, and a kitchenette assembled from basic components. The ceiling height was low. In some sections, an adult could not fully stand upright. These modifications were completed gradually over years. Neighbors later reported hearing construction noise at times, but nothing that appeared unusual for home renovation. Above ground, life continued normally. The family hosted gatherings. Children attended school. Fritzl maintained employment as an electrical engineer. Routine masked preparation. When Elisabeth was lured into the basement in August 1984, the space was already functional. After incapacitating her with ether, as established in court testimony, he locked her inside the concealed chamber. From that moment forward, the structure was no longer a renovation project. It was a controlled environment. Every lock, every bolt, every reinforced wall had a single purpose: to ensure that no one inside could leave and no one outside could easily discover it. When Elisabeth entered the hidden basement in August 1984, she stepped into a world entirely controlled by her father. Court documents and her own testimony later revealed the immediate imposition of rules and threats designed to enforce obedience. Josef Fritzl maintained strict routines, dictating when she could eat, sleep, or perform basic tasks. Every movement was monitored. Deviation brought punishment or fear-inducing threats. One of the methods of control, as described in court, was psychological coercion. Fritzl warned Elisabeth that the basement could be gassed if she attempted escape. While no explosives were found, the threat alone maintained a state of constant vigilance and fear. She was deprived of sunlight. Her exposure to time cues was limited, and her contact with any other humans was entirely controlled. Food, water, and light became instruments of power. Josef determined when meals arrived and how long lights would remain on. Artificial lighting simulated day and night, but there was no real horizon, no sky, no natural rhythm. Over time, Elisabeth's sense of external reality diminished. Communication with the outside world was effectively blocked. Letters purportedly written by Elisabeth were sent under his direction, ensuring the family above ground believed she had voluntarily disappeared. The letters discouraged search efforts and reinforced her isolation. Above ground, life appeared unchanged. The family continued daily routines, neighbors observed normalcy, and no alarms were raised. Beneath it all, Elisabeth's world was a closed system, a place where autonomy had been stripped and compliance was not optional. This beginning of captivity established the framework that would last for decades. It was not chaotic or spontaneous. It was methodical, disciplined, and designed to leave no trace for outsiders. The stage for a prolonged period of coercive control and manipulation had been set. One of the most disturbing aspects of the Fritzl case is the coexistence of two entirely separate realities within the same home. Above ground, the family appeared normal. Josef Fritzl maintained routines meticulously. He drove to work, paid bills on time, and interacted with neighbors without raising suspicion. The children attended school, holidays were celebrated, birthday parties occurred. Laughter and daily chatter continued as if nothing were wrong. Beneath the floorboards, Elisabeth and later her children lived in stark contrast. The hidden basement was dimly lit, soundproofed, and enclosed. Days were dictated by her father's schedule. Food was delivered in strict portions, and every action was controlled. There was no contact with the outside world except through the carefully managed letters Josef dictated. The children born in captivity experienced a world confined to meters rather than streets, with only concrete walls and artificial light to mark the passage of time. This duality created psychological complexity. Elisabeth had to navigate a world of obedience below, while knowing life above continued as usual. She observed her father maintaining social appearances, attending family functions, and interacting with the community, while the reality of her captivity remained hidden. The separation emphasized the unnaturalness of the situation, horror hidden within ordinary life. Court testimonies later highlighted how Josef exploited this duality to reinforce control. By maintaining normalcy above, he prevented suspicion, reducing the likelihood of external intervention. The outside world, oblivious to the true conditions, became a tool for psychological manipulation. Elisabeth's captivity was not only physical, it was also a calculated isolation from belief in rescue, reinforcing submission. This life above and below demonstrates how ordinary routines can disguise profound terror. The horror of the basement was made possible precisely because the world above remained convincing, familiar, and trustworthy. It was a silent, ongoing psychological experiment imposed by her father, in plain sight of neighbors who never suspected. A crucial element in Josef Fritzl's control over Elisabeth and the family above ground was his careful manipulation of communication. In the weeks following her disappearance in 1984, letters allegedly written by Elisabeth began arriving at the Fritzl household. These letters, however, were dictated and controlled entirely by her father. They claimed she had chosen to leave voluntarily, seeking a life with a religious sect, and expressed that she did not wish to be found. The letters were crafted to appear consistent with Elisabeth's handwriting and personality. They included mundane details, fabricated narratives, and appeals for understanding from her family. The psychological effect was twofold. It reassured the family that Elisabeth was alive and made them less likely to question her absence. It also further isolated Elisabeth, convincing her that no help could come from the outside world. Authorities at the time accepted these letters as genuine. Police records indicate that the investigation was eventually closed, partly due to the letters' convincing nature. The family also came to accept them as truth, reducing external pressure and scrutiny. Even the local community, unaware of any unusual circumstances, did not raise questions. Over the years, Josef continued this method, sending letters periodically to maintain the illusion of Elisabeth's voluntary disappearance. He also fabricated explanations for the children born in captivity, claiming that Elisabeth had entrusted them to his care or that other family arrangements had been made. These correspondences delayed suspicion and made the outside world complicit, albeit unknowingly, in the concealment. The letters represent an early example of coercive control extending beyond the physical environment. By controlling the narrative above ground, Josef reinforced Elisabeth's isolation, limited potential rescue, and created a protective barrier that allowed decades of abuse to continue undetected. They illustrate how manipulation can extend into documentation and communication, turning even seemingly reliable information into tools of deception. During Elisabeth's imprisonment, the hidden basement became a space where life and captivity intertwined in a disturbing way. Over the course of her confinement, she gave birth to 7 children. 3 remained in the basement with her, while others were raised above ground by Josef and Rosemary under carefully crafted explanations to the community and authorities. The births themselves were undocumented in terms of hospital registration, except in emergencies. Elisabeth, isolated and under constant surveillance, received no routine medical care. Court testimony later confirmed that Josef controlled every aspect of the pregnancies, monitoring her condition and dictating her activities. One of the children, Michael, tragically died shortly after birth. His passing was kept secret, a fact later confirmed through investigation and reports, and underscores the perilous conditions Elisabeth endured. The children who remained with Elisabeth experienced a confined life entirely dependent on their father's management. Food, schooling, and play were all regulated. Artificial lighting replaced natural rhythms. The small space, already lacking basic comforts, became both nursery and prison. Social and emotional development occurred in a distorted environment where the outside world remained unknown except through Josef's controlled narratives. Above ground, the children taken from Elisabeth were integrated into the family with fabricated backstories. Neighbors and institutions accepted these explanations without question, illustrating the depth of Josef's manipulation. By separating the children, he maintained both a public appearance of normality and private control. The births in captivity highlight the dual realities of the Fritzl case. Life continued in the basement, invisible to the community, while Josef managed appearances above ground. This duality reinforced Elisabeth's isolation and allowed coercive control to persist for decades, illustrating the profound psychological and structural manipulation that defined the case. These events are verified through court records and testimonies. No details are exaggerated. The focus is on the factual mechanisms of control, the forced isolation, and the long-term impact on both Elisabeth and her children. Elisabeth's captivity was defined as much by psychological control as by physical confinement. Josef Fritzl maintained strict rules, schedules, and restrictions that left her dependent on him for every aspect of daily life. Court records and Elisabeth's testimony confirm that compliance was enforced through constant vigilance and threats. Any attempt to question or resist was met with intimidation, from verbal abuse to threats of harm, ensuring that fear remained a constant presence. Isolation was central to this control. Elisabeth had no contact with anyone beyond Josef and, eventually, the children born in captivity. She was cut off from friends, extended family, and the outside world.
Time was distorted. Without natural light and with minimal markers of days or weeks, she could not track the passage of years accurately. Josef controlled the lighting, the schedules, and even the ventilation, reinforcing her dependence on him for basic survival. The letters sent to the family above ground deepened this isolation. Elisabeth learned that any hope of help was mediated through Josef's manipulation. The family's belief in her voluntary disappearance discouraged attempts at external intervention. This dual layer of control, physical confinement below and narrative control above, made the basement more than a prison. It became a psychological environment designed to break resistance. Court testimony also described the strategic use of fear. Threats of violence and fabricated dangers kept Elisabeth compliant. She learned early that defiance carried consequences. The constant uncertainty and lack of autonomy eroded her sense of safety and self-determination. This level of control demonstrates how coercive tactics can dominate a person's life entirely, even in a confined domestic setting. The Fritzl case is a stark example of how psychological manipulation can extend beyond physical imprisonment, creating a state of submission that lasts for decades. Elisabeth's captivity was not merely about walls and locks, it was about shaping her reality through fear, isolation, and relentless domination.
For 24 years, the outside world saw nothing unusual. Neighbors described the Fritzl household as orderly and quiet. Children attended school, family routines continued, and Josef Fritzl maintained a respectable public image. Yet, beneath the surface, signs were there, subtle, easily overlooked, but consistent with a life constrained by coercion. Social services records indicate that inspections occurred, but none detected irregularities. Teachers, doctors, and local officials encountered the children and the family, but were presented with explanations carefully orchestrated by Josef. The letters, supposedly written by Elisabeth, further reinforced the illusion. They discouraged inquiries, reassured authorities, and deflected attention from any unusual occurrences. Some neighbors later recalled small anomalies, limited appearances of certain family members, infrequent outings by Elisabeth, or minor construction noises. Alone, each observation seemed trivial. Together, they formed a pattern that, in hindsight, could have suggested concern. However, the absence of overt conflict or evidence of harm led to complacency. This widespread unawareness illustrates how domestic control can remain invisible when the perpetrators maintain appearances. The normalcy of the exterior life functioned as a shield, preventing intervention even when minor red flags appeared. Josef's meticulous planning ensured that routine life would camouflage extreme abuse. Psychologically, this invisibility added another layer to Elisabeth's isolation. She was not only physically confined, her suffering was hidden behind the trust the community placed in appearances. Each day above ground, she knew that help would not come because the world believed she was not in danger. The Fritzl case demonstrates that coercive control is not always detectable through conventional signs. Social blindness, combined with strategic manipulation and fabricated narratives, allowed the captivity to persist for decades. It underscores the difficulty in identifying domestic abuse when it is conducted with precision, calculation, and an understanding of social perception. The long-hidden captivity began to unravel in 2008 when a medical crisis forced the basement's reality into the open. One of Elisabeth Fritzl's children, Kirsten, fell seriously ill. The condition required urgent hospital care that could not be postponed or managed within the hidden space. This incident triggered scrutiny that years of letters and careful control had previously prevented.
Hospital staff demanded explanations. Josef Fritzl provided fabricated stories, claiming that Elisabeth had entrusted her children to him and Rosemarie, and that Kirsten's condition was being addressed appropriately. The hospital, acting within standard medical procedures, sought verification. This time, the inconsistencies could not be reconciled with the long-standing narrative. Pressure escalated. Authorities were notified. The hospital's insistence on documentation and proof created a scenario where deception could no longer be maintained. The emergency acted as a catalyst, exposing cracks in decades of manipulation. Elisabeth herself, forced by circumstance, revealed critical information to medical professionals, ultimately leading to police involvement. The discovery process was rapid once initiated. Police gained access to the hidden chambers and confirmed the shocking truth. Elisabeth had been imprisoned in the basement for 24 years, along with 3 of her children born in captivity. Structural modifications, reinforced doors, and soundproofing verified the previously hidden environment described in her testimony. This medical emergency demonstrates how an unforeseen event can break even the most meticulously controlled systems of coercion. It highlights the role of external institutions, medical professionals in this case, in detecting abuse that otherwise remains invisible. Without this incident, Elisabeth's captivity might have continued indefinitely, underscoring both the fragility of deception and the critical importance of oversight in protecting vulnerable individuals. The 2008 crisis set in motion the final unraveling, leading directly to the exposure, arrest, and eventual trial of Josef Fritzl, transforming decades of hidden horror into documented fact.
Once the medical emergency revealed the hidden basement, authorities moved quickly. Police entered the concealed chambers under court supervision. They found Elisabeth and 3 of her children alive, living in confined spaces with basic amenities. The structural reinforcements, steel doors, soundproofing, narrow corridors, confirmed the level of premeditation and control detailed in Elisabeth's testimony. Josef Fritzl was arrested immediately. He initially denied the full extent of his actions, but ultimately confessed under interrogation. Law enforcement and court records confirmed that the confession aligned with decades of documented evidence, letters, structural modifications, and witness statements. The case became one of the most notorious in modern European true crime history. During the trial in 2009, prosecutors presented a meticulously reconstructed timeline. Evidence included building plans, medical records, and forensic documentation. Witnesses, including Elisabeth and some of her children, provided testimony about their lived experiences. Court-appointed psychologists discussed the psychological manipulation, coercive control, and trauma sustained over decades. Fritzl's defense attempted to mitigate the charges, citing psychological issues, but the court found overwhelming evidence of intentional imprisonment, abuse, and deception. In March 2009, he was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. The sentence included mandatory psychiatric evaluation, recognizing the severity of his crimes and the extensive psychological harm caused. Media coverage, while intense, carefully reported on the verified facts. Sensationalist speculation was largely separated from court findings. International attention highlighted systemic failures, how social services, authorities, and neighbors had been misled, and how the facade of normality can hide extreme abuse. The trial reinforced key lessons. Coercive control can be meticulously concealed. Deception can manipulate both family and institutions, and only extraordinary circumstances, such as the medical emergency, may expose long-term abuse.
The legal outcome, while providing justice, also emphasized that appearances can be dangerously deceptive in ordinary domestic settings. This phase marked the transition from hidden horror to documented truth, ensuring that the case could inform public understanding and institutional practices for the future. Even after Josef Fritzl's arrest and sentencing, the legacy of the case continues to unsettle. The house in Amstetten still stands, blending into the quiet suburban street as if nothing had occurred within its walls. Neighbors cut their lawns, children ride their bicycles past the familiar facade. Life above ground moves forward, oblivious to the decades-long terror beneath it. The most disturbing element is not only what happened, but how easily it remained hidden. For 24 years, one of the most shocking cases of coercive control and imprisonment went undetected, sustained by deception, community trust, and meticulous planning. This duality between normal life and concealed horror challenges assumptions about safety, familiarity, and the signs of domestic abuse. Elisabeth and her children have since sought to rebuild their lives. Psychological support, medical care, and protective measures have been essential for recovery, though the trauma cannot be entirely undone. Court documents and interviews reveal a careful and ongoing process of rehabilitation, highlighting the long-term consequences of isolation and manipulation. The Fritzl case serves as a warning. Ordinary life can conceal extraordinary evil when appearances are trusted without scrutiny. Coercive control is not always visible. It can operate in silence, sustained by fear, isolation, and deception. Awareness, vigilance, and institutional support are critical to preventing similar tragedies. For the community of Amstetten, the memory remains both personal and public. The case prompted changes in how authorities respond to disappearances, missing persons, and family reports. It remains a benchmark in criminal psychology and law enforcement studies, illustrating the complexity of domestic terror hidden within routine environments. In 2008, the doors were finally opened. The concrete was broken, the locks removed, the world found out. Josef Fritzl was sentenced to life in prison. The house still stands. For 24 years, people walked past it, neighbors cut their grass, children rode bikes on the street, and beneath their feet, someone was waiting. The most disturbing part isn't how it ended, it's how long it lasted. Because nothing about that house looked unusual, and that's what makes it unforgettable.